Today, the biggest companies in Silicon Valley, such as Google, Microsoft, and Adobe, are now led by the CEOs who came to America from difficult beginnings in India. These are the same people who once were in the crammed alleys of the slums in India, where running water was a luxury and every inch of space was shared by extended family. They learned early on that success wouldn't come easily, and that long hours of study while sharing a single room with their siblings was the price of opportunity. It was this determination that drove them to overcome visa restrictions and rise to the ranks of these global tech giants. By carrying their experiences of scarcity and this community resilience with them, they put themselves in the face of the world's largest stages. My dad also had a similar experience of struggle and determination. Coming to America was a dream for him, not only because of America's job opportunities, but because he could provide for his family. More than 20 years, my dad was stuck on an H-1B visa. The H-1B visa is a temporary employer-sponsored work visa that initially lasts for 3 years and can be extended up to 6 or more years, depending on your green card status. For all those years, my dad's support for our family was limited by the H-1B visa due to no financial aid for education, and any children under 21 cannot work and be employed. However, despite these constraints, my dad never gave up. He utilized his social connections with others to gain a deeper understanding of the green card process and always put his family first. For many of these Indian immigrants who want to achieve something great in America, they value two things: their dharma and social capital. Dharma is an important cultural value of Indian immigrants that gives them a sense of duty and responsibility to provide for their family and heritage. Whereas social capital is a network that Indian immigrants built of close community ties and supported networks that give them access to elite technical education and helps them thrive in society. Indian immigrants use cultural and social values as resources to persist through visa hardships, later translating that resilience into entrepreneurship for some immigrants. The concept of dharma and social capital are opposite to the self-reliance and autonomy that American individualism brings, and instead prioritizes collectivism and how India and as a community drives these individuals to success. So that brings us to the big question: how do Indian immigrants on H-1B visas in the US use social capital and cultural values to overcome visa constraints and achieve entrepreneurial success? Although American individualism emphasizes personal success and self-reliance, Indian immigrants on H-1B visas depend on community-driven social capital through cultural ties like dharma and strong educational networks to overcome visa constraints and ultimately pursue entrepreneurship to secure work and financial stability. When Indian immigrants first came into the US in the early 20th century, they faced many discriminatory policies that prevented them from attaining citizenship and led to them relying on their own strength to survive in America. In 1923, the United States versus Bhagat Singh Thind court ruling disallowed citizenship for Indian immigrants since they were not considered as white. This ruling led Indian immigrants to rely on themselves to achieve personal freedom since they were not accepted in society. For instance, the arrival of Punjabi Sikh farmers in California in the early 20th century originally faced restrictive land laws such as the Alien Land Law of 1913 and 1920, which prohibited Indian farmers from owning land and obtaining citizenship. However, they were still able to develop a strong agricultural community. In 2013, a study assessed how strongly residents in each U.S. state were connected by communal bonds. They combined measures like how often elderly family members live with relatives, the prevalence of multi-generational households, and the rates of shared transportation habits to create 3 scores of collectivism. Across all 3 measures, states with greater racial and ethnic diversity consistently scored higher on collectivism, even after accounting for differences in income and education. The study demonstrates that diverse communities naturally create their own tight social networks. This pattern shows that the early Indian immigrants' experience of pursuing the path of American individualism would not be made possible due to how America excluded them and that they had to build their own communal safety net to thrive in society. As Indian immigrants began arriving in the US through the H-1B visa system, they encountered significant limitations. These constraints not only created job insecurity, but also threatened their ability to pursue personal or professional growth. However, despite these systemic issues, many Indian immigrants relied on a powerful sense of their communal identity and cultural duty to persevere and ultimately find success. One major challenge H-1B holders face is being forced to a single employer. As Marcela F. Gonzalez of Brooklyn College explains, temporary visa holders often cannot change jobs without risking their legal status, and many are underpaid despite being overqualified. This legal bind discourages risk-taking, yet many still pursue entrepreneurship. In my interview with entrepreneur Dhruv Gupta, a 2020 Harvard graduate and CEO of his startup company Drumke, he explains that
One of the things I think a lot about is like the concept of like dharma, right? Like
Oh yeah.
which is sort of like translates to like duty, right? So I think about that a lot. Like, okay, like my responsibility to my family is that I need to financially um stick, I need to financially take care of them. I need to financially take care of my future family. Um, I want to like, but at the same time, like as kind of repeating what I said earlier, like they, my family has set me up to be able to do these opportunities and have these opportunities. So like it is my responsibility to take advantage of them, and do the best I can to like build upon that foundation. Um, and if I fail, I fail. That's fine. But the goal is for us to try. Yeah.
For Gupta, the sacrifices of his immigrant parents instilled a moral obligation to succeed, not just for personal gain, but to honor his family's journey. This sense of responsibility from Indian culture gives Indian immigrants a lot of strength against their limitations. The Indian American Attitude Survey supports this narrative, showing that Indian Americans maintain strong ethnic identity markers and community ties, which helps them last through challenges like visa insecurity. Social capital through cultural organizations, religious communities, and alumni networks become very valuable in navigating the complex American immigration system. As seen by this graph, 43% of foreign-born Indians in America have a social network that has mostly friends of Indian origin. This shows that Indian immigrants continuously use their country's support to help them. This sacrifice and struggle is similar to historical patterns. In the poem Gift to India, Sarojini Naidu mourns the loss of Indian sons sacrificed to foreign wars that show both grief and pride. Naidu writes, "Can ye measure the grief of the tears I weep, or compass the woe of the watch I keep, or the pride that drills through my heart's despair, and the hope that comforts the anguish of prayer?" Naidu is speaking in the voice of Mother India, mourning the Indian soldiers who died fighting in foreign wars on behalf of the British Empire. Despite the loss, she takes in the pride of her courage and continues to hope for recognition and peace. Mother India can be described as a protective mother archetype, always looking out for its children. In addition to personal and cultural motivations, Indian immigrants on H-1B visas have played a critical role in driving American innovation, even while suffering through significant legal restrictions. One scholar who highlights this relationship is Dr. William R. Kerr, a professional at Harvard Business School. His research investigates how increases in H-1B visa admissions influence science and engineering output, particularly among immigrant groups. In Kerr's findings, he writes, a 10% growth in the H-1B population corresponded with a 4 to 5% higher growth in Indian and Chinese invention for each standard deviation increase in firm dependency. This data shows that Indian immigrants, despite them being tied to temporary work visas and restricted in mobility, are disproportionately responsible for America's technological progress. In industries like software and engineering, firms that relied more heavily on H-1B workers, particularly of Indian origin, saw faster growth in innovation. In other words, even though the visa system limits job flexibility and creates legal uncertainty, Indian immigrants push through those challenges and still contribute meaningfully to the productivity of the country. Indian immigrants were able to leverage their strong educational and technical networks to create a strong entrepreneurship foundation in the US. Many Indian immigrants arrive in the US already equipped with degrees from India's best engineering institutes. The Indian Institutes of Technology admit less than 2% of applicants, yet receive over 85% of central government funding that makes their students receive the best education with minimal cost to the students. After graduation, they go on to US graduate programs, convert their visas into permanent residency, and enter top research and development labs or universities. According to the Institute of Immigration Research at George Mason University, roughly 3/4 of foreign-born Indians aged 25 and older in the Washington, D.C. Baltimore metropolitan area hold at least a bachelor's degree, and 43% have earned a master's, professional, or other graduate degree. This shows that Indian immigrants in the DC Baltimore area rank among the most highly educated demographic group in the region, giving them a distinct advantage in accessing these special occupations. They require advanced credentials and show how to utilize their social and professional networks that lead to entrepreneurial success. But degree holding alone isn't enough to create startups. Indian immigrants rely on social capital with large trust-based networks of elders, classmates, and shared regional or religious communities to supply themselves with mentorship, capital, and access to professional services. Karl Marx argues that in the capitalist circuit, money is used to purchase commodities such as more labor power to improve production, which in yield turns into a great sum of money by the surplus value taken from the workers. However, in the context of Indian H-1B entrepreneurs, it is not monetary capital that serves as a primary advantage, but rather social capital, which directly transforms into valuable commodities such as marketable skills and business opportunities, and ultimately creates financial returns without relying solely on traditional wage labor exploitation. Associations like the Silicon Valley Indian Professionals Association provide hundreds of entrepreneurs with introductions to investors and early stage funding. In recent years, these ties have extended into digital networks. One interviewee, Anand Cherian from the Department of Sociology and Anthropology at George Mason University, explained,
Post 1990s and 2000, I actually feel there is a social networks that created around Facebook or any other platforms, which created the burgeoning of the recruiters to more clearly look for their applicants and even the groups for that matter. There's a state in India which called Andhra Pradesh. If you look into the H-1B program in US, there is a group of mostly like more than 60% of Indian citizens who hail from that region. So that itself shows there is a social capital and there is a transnational connectivity and a migration corridor exist in that sense.
not only do Indian immigrants have strong educational and technical networks, they can also utilize their regional and digital networks to always further aid them in the American journey. According to the Migration Policy Institute article on Indian immigrants in the United States, Indian nationals were the main beneficiaries of H-1B temporary visas for highly skilled foreign workers, accounting for 72% of all H-1Bs approved in fiscal year 2023. When many Indian immigrants are in the same pool for H-1B visas, they tend to come from the same geographical hubs such as Andhra Pradesh, as mentioned by Mr. Cherian, where they already share many cultural and regional networks with each other. This shared background creates a strong sense of trust, which becomes essential when navigating through the challenges of immigration and entrepreneurship in a foreign country. These networks have led Indian immigrants to lots of success. Between 1995 to 2005, over 1/4 of new US engineering and tech companies had at least one immigrant founder, and people of Indian origin accounted for the largest share of origin country, especially in software and tech service fields. Indian immigrants not only support America through their hard work in these engineering and tech industries, but they represent the face of America's biggest companies and also the biggest companies in the world. In sum, Indian H-1B immigrants have converted elite technical training into entrepreneurial success, not only through ambition, but by utilizing their dense social and cultural networks, both offline and online. From India's top engineering colleges and US graduate programs to specific regional networks such as Andhra Pradesh's associations, LinkedIn cohorts, and Silicon Valley gatherings, they have used social capital and a strong sense of duty to go through visa barriers, secure funding, and ultimately rise in global industries. Their story challenges the narrative of American individualism, proving that community resilience and mutual support can drive entrepreneurial innovation. By founding startups, mentoring newcomers, and reinvesting in each other, Indian immigrants not only power U.S. growth today, but also provide a collaborative path for future generations.